You'll find in cities certain neighborhoods or streets that have become centers for a particular kind of business. I mean, it could be antique shops, bars and restaurants, medical facilities, auto dealerships. Well, Lindell Boulevard in St. Louis, I think, is unique in that somehow it developed into St. Louis's headquarters for headquarters. It got started in the early part of the 20th century. It was actually 1899 when the private St. Louis Club built its ornate home. This is where Mayor Rollo Wells gave his new St. Louis speech to rally city leaders around the upcoming World's Fair. Now it's a St. Louis University Art Museum. But up and down Lindell are current and old headquarters. There's still the Archdiocese, of course, the Red Cross, the American Cancer Society, the Engineers Club, Optimist International, the Travelers Protective Association. But the really impressive group of headquarters buildings is between Grand and Vandevenner. These are massive temples filled with auditoriums, lounges, meeting rooms. They're huge buildings that are expensive to maintain, to heat and cool, and probably would never be built today. They are mostly from the 1910s and 20s, the heyday of fraternal organizations, and really of the city itself. So if the building's too big or the group's too small or it wants to move to the county, what do you do with the big old headquarters? Well, the Moolah Shrine sat empty for 15 years while they pondered that question. And as it turns out, there were two answers. So we have two stories.
This building was built in 1912 for the Shriners, Moolah Shriners, and it has all this beautiful ornamental Moorish plaster work throughout the building, which has been completely restored.
It's a gutsy idea. Convert an old Moolah Temple in Midtown into a single-screen movie theater. But if anyone could pull it off, it would be Harman Moseley.
You know, I didn't want a boring life, didn't want a boring career.
A man who follows his instincts, creates his own rules, and makes them work.
But we've got to do something to distinguish ourselves. We can't really compete with these, multinational conglomerates in putting up a 16-screen theater. It costs a lot of money to do that. So we've just tried to carve out our own little niche, and since we don't have big advertising budgets, we have to do things to get people to talk about us, word of mouth, because we think of word of mouth as being the best advertising.
I've got to say, Harman, I've never seen a movie theater like this.
It really is an unbelievable space. I was floored by it when I first saw it, and it was just a cool place to be. And I kept trying to think, what can I do as a single screen? So we just said, let's make it as something that's completely different than any other theater in town. And, a single screen theater.
I thought you couldn't make money on a single screen. I thought that was the conventional wisdom.
You may be right, Patrick. We're going to find out, but I hope not.
In an age of big theater chains and tiny screens, Moseley's plan is, if he can't fight the big boys on their own turf, create a completely different experience. Build it. They will come.
But the fact we got couches and stadium seating and balcony seating, as well as a place you can come and bring your drink into the theater, as well as see it on the big screen compared to all the little, multiplex screens. It's sort of a throwback to the old movie palaces days, and you're right, nobody's doing it, but this theater this building lent itself to that, and we're willing to take the bet that it can work.
So, Harman, right now we're standing in the heart of the Moolah projection booth.
That's the fabulous Moolah, Patrick, projection booth. And it's fabulous in many other ways, too. One thing, because our screen is so big here, we have a 4,500 watt bulb that we have to, in order to light it up. But in order to do that, we have to water cool the aperture plate so it doesn't melt. In the 13 theaters I've operated, I've never had to do that before. But I've never had a screen this big either. But we also have state-of-the-art sound. There's 20 surround speakers, 5 speakers behind screen. I mean, since you're only building one theater, we decided we're going to make it the best we possibly can.
With all that's changed, the magic remains the same as always. The illusion of moving pictures on a screen, transporting us, for a couple of hours at least, to other worlds.
For for 50, 60 years, from the very beginning, film has always come in on reels like this. We still get it this way. It's shipped, comes in cans, 5 or 6 reels depending upon the length of it. What we do is we splice it together so you have all the film on one reel, like this on this platter. This is called a platter. Runs through the projector, splice it up, and comes back, and it's ready to go.
Bucking trends is nothing new for Harman Moseley. When the smart thing to do seemed to be to build new theaters in the exurbs, Harman put movies in the long-abandoned Chase Hotel in the Central West End.
You know, when we first came in here, the Chase had been closed for 8 years and was a complete disaster, just like the Moolah. My specialty, fixing closed disaster theaters.
You've done all right at it.
But, well, it's turned into a beautiful place, and it was always very exciting about being in the West End. At the Chase, we put these trompe-l'oeil murals from renowned artist Dick Godwin in here because we wanted to create the illusion of a larger space and wanted to create atmosphere. And who doesn't like, you know, looking over an Italian vista or French rooftops or being a grand movie palace? And each theater we did with a different theme, and it really has worked out great. If you were coming to my house, I'd want everything to be right. Well, I feel the same way about when you come to my theater. Thank you all for coming today. We appreciate it. These guys are desperate for a story, you can say. Thank you for joining us. What are you going to say?
Aviator.
Great movie. I loved it. 3 hours, but it's really good. And that right there, that kind of transaction is what I like the most about painting. I don't know, it's contacting people, it's being social, and you know, I want people to have a good time. For every success I've had a failure. So if there's one thing that can be said about me is that I'm willing to try. I'm willing to try, you know, all kinds of stuff. You know, the whole goal, Patrick, of all these theaters is to create an environment in which people are going to feel so comfortable to come to and want to get away from their day-to-day lives. You know, there's nothing like a great movie to really remove you from what's going on in your world. That's the magic, and that's why people keep coming and will keep coming.